Hey Raider Nation, what's up? Jesse Merrick here, back at Raiders HQ. Just got done with practice, and look, this was my first day out there at practice because yesterday I didn't come out here. I was waiting for the final 53-man roster to be released so I could tape the podcast. I got my first look at Amari Cooper today, rocking the silver and black again, I guess. And just had the thought that, this is a really good low-risk move for the Raiders. They bring in a vet who's been there, done that, who very much has a chip on his shoulder, and when he's healthy, he has been very successful. So I like what they did there. Real curious to see what kind of role he carves out for himself and what that looks like next week as they get geared up for New England and what it looks like on game one. So real interesting there. It's going to be fun to kind of watch his development within this team. Also, two guys just rounding out the practice squad. You don't get Tommy Malott back on the practice squad. That was their choice, I believe. You move on. We didn't see much from him at all throughout training camp. I'll be honest. There was a lot of talk of many other teams possibly being interested in him. As far as I know right now, he hasn't signed with anybody else. I just think the development wasn't quite there, and what was that development going to look like or eventually turn into? They played that game and they decided they liked what Alex Bachman provides right now. And to that note, I think Alex Bachman is a guy that will eventually at some point get called up when injuries do inevitably pop up, and he's a guy that can contribute for this team in some way, shape, or form. Not some massive role, but he's a guy that can slot in there and do some good things for this team, when and if he's called upon. Some of the other names that just stood out to me from the practice squad, Trey Taylor and Terrell Edmonds. Those are two guys that I think have a shot at some point to get called up. Specifically Terrell Edmonds. He was mixing it with the ones, playing some free safety as well. Even saw him walk down into the slot, like a guy that can very much do a lot. A late add to this team, so maybe give him some more time to get settled in, get his feet wet. But he's a guy that I think is a name that we watch out for as the season rolls on and see how things kind of transpire between Thomas Harper and Chris Smith on the back end in terms of being that first safety off the bench. Also, too, like I said, Trey Taylor, he's a guy that's done a lot on special teams. I've really liked his game. What's that role going to look like if he does ever get called up? But he's just one that I think is kind of interesting, And then also Greedy Vance in the cornerback room. I did expect the Raiders to add at corner. Maybe Juju Brents was a name I was expecting they may try and go after, and obviously that didn't end up happening. He ended up signing with somebody else. But just an interesting group overall, I think, on the practice squad. Again, I like the Greedy Vance move. I like that they could bring him back in here. Pete is going to really get an opportunity to kind of sink his teeth into him. And I think it'll be fun to watch his development on that practice squad. And if and when he gets an opportunity, he's a guy that plays with a chip on his shoulder and has been really fun to watch throughout camp. Then obviously Cam Miller, they do get him back. Very much so a developmental piece for this team. I'm excited to watch and see how he grows, especially now with Pickett coming into the fold. Cam's got some interesting tools. It's very clear that they know that he is still going to take some time. But I'm real curious this time next year what Cam Miller looks like as a player.